Welcome back. You're watching India Tonight. I'm Nivedna Prabhu, and like always, joining me is my colleague Sumita Karir. We, of course, continue to put the top focus on the GST reform. And joining us on the show this evening is Balbir Dhillon, head of Audi India. Balbir, thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here this evening. Let's begin with your first reaction on the GST reforms coming in. Lots of positives for the auto industry sector here.
Well, from Audi's perspective, we see these changes that have come by to be very, very positive. Not just from automotive point of view, from the point of view of also, demand creation. So overall, I think it's a very positive sentiment that gets created when such reforms take place. And I'm extremely bullish that, this will be very, very helpful in creating demand. At the same time, also simplifying the structure, which brings ease of compliance, that we can work in our businesses rather than having multiple rates. We have limited number of rates. And coming back to the automotive sector, I think it's very, very positive. The penetration of cars in India is already very low, less than, let's say, about 30 cars for every 1,000 inhabitants. So I think we are able to widen our base in general in automotive industry. And last but not the least, for Audi in the luxury space, I'm sure this changes will bring more and more potential buyer to our segment. And that is what we are all looking forward to.
Right, Balbir. In fact, for the luxury car segment, that Audi is in, the 40% GST is a cut if you look at the 28% GST and the 22% cess earlier. But how does that change your demand outlook now?
Well, like you mentioned, that the overall reduction in GST and cess put together, what it was and what it's going to be at 40%. I think broadly the benefit that the customers will have will be between 5 to 6% on the ex-showroom level. Approximately, I'm saying the final calculations we are still doing. I think with this kind of price improvement that happens in the market, we definitely will see upwards of 5% growth that we will expect in the coming times. But I think that is a very small part of the whole puzzle. For us, it's more about the sentiment. And the more we are able to increase the positive sentiment in the industry, the better the outcome of the sale would be. I'm sure our MSMEs, our potential buyers who definitely spent buying luxury cars will benefit from the revised GST structure, and this will have more money into their pockets, and eventually that will lead to a positive sentiment for the industry to grow even furthermore.
Right, Balbir. In fact, as you talk about how it's going to be navigated going ahead, let me ask you the other aspect, because on the input side, will the cuts in GST create considerable cash flows? And how are you looking at GST cuts on auto parts? What do you make of that?
Well, I think in general, what is most important when these kind of changes do happen is what matters is the last GST which is paid by the customers, which for our segment, let's say it was between 48 to 50%, that becomes 40%. So that is the only thing that we should look at. Everything, what we purchase at a different price points at different GST levels, that gets consumed while taking the input tax credit or the GST credit at the back end. But I think it's important to also mention is that not only the cars will become less expensive with the GST coming down, we also have clarity on all the parts that are, we sell to our customers through our workshops when they come for repairs. It also coming down from 28 to 18%. So I think from that point of view, cost of ownership as well will come down. So it's a dual benefit for the customers, which is very positive.
Right, Balbir, the luxury car segment is definitely going to get a boost like you mentioned. But what does it really mean for Audi's geographical expansion? Will you be looking at perhaps opening more showrooms in tier 2, 3 cities and towns?
Well, I must say, let me digest the good news in next couple of days before we start thinking of already expanding. But you're right. I think you have to keep in mind the luxury space in the automotive sector is anyway very, very small in India. We are just about 1.25, 1.3% of the overall car industry. So we cater to a very limited segment. But with this change, I'm sure this growth will be positive. It will move upwards. And I'm sure at some point in time, we will move towards 2%. The moment we have more sales happening, I'm sure tier 2, tier 3 tier 4 cities, which we already are present, we'll definitely be looking at, increasing our width. That will give us better closeness to our customers so that we are able to cater to their needs very, very closely where they live.
Right, Balbir, fair enough. In fact, when that happens, we'll have the opportunity for another conversation. But talking about the luxury EV segment, in fact, will still attract a 5% GST. Does that mean you'll be looking at this segment more enthusiastically now?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, we were kind of, let's say, a little worried what will happen to the EVs, but this came as a very, very positive news that EVs still remains to be at 5%, which at this point in time, at least for next, let's say, some years, we definitely need because the industry in the EV is still very, very small. So in next couple of years, we definitely see this to be improving in terms of penetrations that we see. So we definitely are very positive about this news that the EVs GST remains to be at 5% so that we can plan our business ahead. In general, the luxury space, the planning cycles are very, very long. So we need the stability which we've got now in terms of the GST. And now we are able to, think openly, think forward and try and bring as many EVs as we can.
So, Balbir, you're bullish of the overall EV segment as far as the luxury segment is concerned. Reading between the lines, does this mean that we'll soon be seeing more EVs from the Audi fold?
Of course, like I said, we are digesting this news. We're waiting for the final circulars to come by. Once we have all the detailings done, we will definitely look at interaction with our headquarters asking for more and more cars for India.
All right, Balbir, thanks very much for taking the time out and sharing your thoughts on this big GST bonanza that's been introduced by the government. Of course, demand creation is something that companies like yourselves are essentially looking at. Thanks very much for joining.